Hello and welcome to this edition of The Verified with me, Mr. Kedal. Today, for the first time, I have Mr. Bakar Baji, Youth Minister. You would have been a mayor,
That was
unfortunately.
the wish.
Yes. Welcome to this edition of The Verified.
Thank you, Mr. Davo. It's good to be here.
Great. You've been a youth minister for the past 8 years now, or
No, 5.
5 years, yeah?
Mm,
Because you came only after hard drama, no?
yes, it was
Yes, 5 years.
almost at the end of 2020.
Yes, it's still also a lot of time.
Yes, certainly.
Let's first have conversations around issue of sports and sports development. We'll begin with the issue of the current sports bill. If you're talking about sports in the Gambia, I'm not a sports journalist, but one thing that all of us have to be submerged in is the issue of accountability relation to sports or sports management. And the sports bill is seeking to institute a sports council,
Authority.
a sports authority that's going to be responsible for sort of accountability in a general framework of the sporting associations. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, thank you. It's good to discuss this. Like you said, so what we used to have is called the National Youth Council, and that's what we still have. It's called National Youth Council, which was through an act of the year 2000, and the council establishes like regional committees and all of these structures, and has an office here in Banjul or in Bakau, and their mandate is mostly to register, monitor organizations, and do quite a number of things, support organizations in their participation. But of course, after 25 years, sports have really evolved, and that traditional role of council is no longer tenable. So what we're doing now, or what we ended up doing a few years ago, is to have a consultant to look at the best practices in terms of sports administration and sport regulation, and come up with what we call in Gambia sport bill. And the bill is still, as it is a bill, it has gone through the process and eventually got approved by cabinet, and now it is supposed to head to the National Assembly, but there were some amendments from cabinet which is now being reviewed at the level of the Ministry of Justice. What that bill seeks to do is beyond the traditional role of the council, is to give it more power. But we start off with changing the mandate, of course, with the name from a sport council to a national sport authority, and then it will have a board of directors and quite a number of other relevant units that are responsible. But its role will be implementation of the sports regulation, of course, with the support of the ministry, administer the proposed national sports development fund, and then also serve as secretariat for the sports tribunal, and quite a number of other national anti-doping platform, quite a number of others. But the most important part about accountability is now it mandates every registered sport association to make a declaration at the end of the year in terms of revenue that they receive, the expenditure, and the audit report, and also be able to receive petitions from sports associations, which this council does now, but not in the manner that an authority would have the mandate to be able to do. So these are some of the new things that we are putting in place.
What form of petitions would those be, and what sport associations are you talking about?
Example, there might be internal conflicts within associations.
Yeah.
So one thing about, just like you have the governance politics, sports has a lot of politics that goes in, sometimes unnoticed, sometimes it's noticed. So you can have one association, for instance, that have two rival executives, and one group will claim authority, the other one will. So that the other one that is aggrieved can write a petition to the authority to say, we were elected this, but this body refused to hand over to us, something like that. And then the authority will review it and make a determination as to which one is the one, which group should be recognized. So there are others where, we've had those things in the past. People leave the position, but don't hand over assets of the association, or some other people claim to represent the Gambia at the international level when they are not the recognized body. So those kind of things, we do receive letters from individuals who are aggrieved to say this happened. But sometimes it's very difficult for you to act because you do not have the legal framework on which you can be able to investigate and know who is wrong and who is right. So maybe that could be one example. The other one could be accusations of corruption, from individuals who are part of an association or maybe interested in the association also does the same. Suspension of a member or an affiliate group. Those happen by an association executive without following the due process. So that is the kind of platform.
So if there is a petition from a member of, let's say, for example, whether it's any of the sport associations, let's say GFF or GNOC or any of their sports groups, the authority can come in and investigate.
Yes.
And where found culpable can take actions.
Yeah. So they will have the actions to. Yes, they can be able to take actions, and the association, it will be expected to implement the associations. Otherwise, it can be escalated to a different level, or they can either be suspended or be not recognized. Those kind of.
But they even have powers, including also ensuring that they hold AGMs on time, elections on time, and also take actions where they fail to do such.
Yes, and right now that doesn't happen. I mean, the council does a good job in terms of monitoring that. To say, okay, this association is supposed to go to AGM, they did not. They're supposed to go to elections, they did not. And somebody can report that to the council, and then the council will write to the association to say you're supposed to go for elections, but you didn't. That they're currently doing right now. But it will also be part of the mandate of the authority.
Of the authorities.
Yes.
This, to some extent, I mean, I have been having a conversation with quite a number of you as I prepare for this interview, and a lot of the people I speak to were telling me there are mixed feelings. So there are some who think that the borderline between government influence or control in sports and the lack of it is being a little bit blurred by this arrangement.
No, of course it is. Yes, because like I said, the laws are not very clear in terms of giving authority to the council or the ministry, for instance. Of course, the council acts on behalf of the ministry to do certain things. And I know, sometimes people will want to compare with the past. And I said, okay, the past is a different time. There were people that you can do, those times you can do things, and then, you go with it. But now, if you do certain things that is not in line with the law, anybody can take you to court, and the court will make a ruling. And the higher chance is that the ministry or the sport council will lose. So we are very careful about what we do in terms of what our mandate is. But in order to be able to change that dynamic is why we are proposing this bill to be able to give power to the authority to be able to make certain decisions. The other part is that some of these associations have very strong international affiliations or membership who takes a certain position about what they consider to be non-government interference in the operations of these associations. And if you do that, there is a consequence. So sometimes, yes, the country can sacrifice and say we are ready to do this in order to ensure that there is sanity, but then get suspended for a year or 2 or 3. And we've seen countries do that. Sometimes they come bigger and better. There are few examples like Kenya and others who accepted the suspension and stayed out of football, for instance, for 2 years. But in the period, they used to build the infrastructure that they are now benefiting, and it's giving them the opportunity to even host the AFCON 2027. So those kind of things are there, but it is about whether the country is ready for it, whether the population is ready to go without football at the international level or athletics at the international level or any kind of competition.
But there are a lot of folks who look at some of those experiences and say, look, the issue of football interference in football, particularly ones that comes from FIFA, sometimes is stretched unnecessarily. Because where our government puts our money, we should have a say.
Yeah. No, FIFA doesn't have a problem with the government deciding to investigate a federation for monies that they give to them, like in the public money.
Yeah.
That is acceptable. Now, however, you must be able to set put the separations in terms of what comes from FIFA and what comes from government. Now, traditionally here, we were not having those kind of things. I think it was until 2023 when we discussed with GFF to put our funds in a separate account. But before, when our funds are given, they go into their normal account. So if you want to now investigate that account where funds from FIFA and the government is mixed, I guess, then it becomes a problem. But there was a lot of measures, for instance, from our level, if we're going to take GFF as an example, where we at one time decided to hold on to the money, and then our accountants from the ministry or officers from the ministry would go and do the expenditure themselves. But also that didn't work well, because sometimes you are not able to finance the national team, for instance, in the manner that the GFF wants. So we had an agreement to say, okay, we'll put our money into a different fund. So if government at any time wants to audit that account, they're free to do so. And if there's anything that they found out, then
but GFF in itself as an institution exists for the Gambian and on behalf of the Gambian people.
Yes.
And if there is no country, they wouldn't have existed. So whatever they receive from FIFA, and the people are entitled to know how much that money is, how it's spent, and why it's spent and where it's spent. I mean, that should also be something legitimate that government should be able to have a say in.
No, of course. I mean, well, all of them, all these associations, whether it's GNOC or it's the GFF or it's the Athletics Association, Volleyball Association, any one of them that is receiving money that comes to the Gambia, yes, it has been receiving the money on behalf of the Gambia. But and FIFA, for instance, and even the IOC is almost transparent in terms of what they're giving. There might be some associations that you will find very difficult to go online and see how much they receive from their international federation. But there are some of the big ones, you can definitely go online because they publish it. They tell you in this particular period or this particular year, this much I was given to the GNOC or the Gambia NOC or the Gambia Football Federation or the Gambia Athletics Association. It's always there. But then again, sometimes people here don't make a lot of research, and sometimes they assume that things didn't go right. But also, I don't know about other smaller associations, but the big ones, there is always an audit at the end of the year as to the monies that they were giving and what they spent it on. And so far, well, since I was minister, I've not received any letter or any communication from any international office to say that there was a suspicion of fraud in a particular association or association X. Neither did we also receive any complaint from any member associations. Because again, people want us to act yes, because these associations are on behalf of the Gambia, but the associations are registered as private entities and they operate as stakeholder-based associations, wherein there are members who own it. And these are the members that can question them, but these are also the members that can
teams
petition.
And regional sports.
Yeah, the RFAs, the first division, second division, the referee associations, the coaches associations. These are the affiliate members. I mean, they are the members and the affiliate members. So the members are the RFAs and the clubs. And then the others that are auxiliary to the associations will be the coaches, the referees and others. But I mean, I don't know, but I have never received a petition or anything from any of these members to claim wrongdoing by the federation and or by the GNOC or by the GAA. It has not happened before. And that's what I keep telling people, that it's like somebody saying, oh, something is written on the social media and you want us to act on it without giving us tangible reasons to act. Then it becomes a little bit difficult to govern. And these are some of the challenges that we face.
So even until, but if the authority is into effect, wouldn't it have the capacity to even take interest in funding that is received through FIFA or, let's say, for example, through other agencies, whether to GNOC or to the GFF or others?
No, we do. I mean, they don't tell us when they receive their money, but at the end of the year, they normally have an AGM, and in the AGM, they present reports. And these are audited reports. Those audited reports are shared with us as a ministry and through the Sport Council.
And I mean, with the authority, after the authority come into effect, wouldn't it have some leverage to sort of, peep into the issue of finances managed by GFF, even GFF or GNOC or others, even ones that are donated by, let's say, FIFA or others?
Well, that would be a gray area. I'm not very sure if the authority can peep into monies that are given by the international body. What we have or intend to eventually have is that the association will be mandated to report in a normal, like half yearly manner, like twice a year, to say we have received this much money from our international affiliation. And that's it. Then at the end of the year, they report back to say this is where the money was spent.
And the authority would have no objective wouldn't have no powers to take any interest in this. They would just be passively receiving this data.
Well, yes, for I think that's and I believe that is what is proper. But like I said, and when there is wrongdoing, then that is now the time the authority will go
But
into
you
depth.
wouldn't know if there is wrongdoing if you don't look into it.
No, members can.
Yeah, members can, but of course we know in the history of GFF all throughout. Let's say, for example, I'm taking GFF as an example because it has taken much more interest in the Gambia. I mean, because football is also a very important subject in this country. If you take them, for example, they've always been tensions within the federation. By different groups, and there have always been claims and allegations and petitions all over the place. Even recently, there are tons of petitions. Of course, that there are. It's from politicians who are rival groups, but that kind of a situation, they will still be powerless.
You mean who the ones that are claiming?
No, I mean the authority will still be powerless in the face of that kind of petition. When the funding has to do with monies that comes from, let's say, for example, FIFA.
No, they might not be powerless. I think the fundamental thing here, and which is important, is the petition. Because, like I said, an allegation of wrongdoing without evidence is difficult for anybody to treat. If a club or an affiliate body decides to say there was something wrong, and they write to the authority to say we have noticed this and this, and then it's even here, that's how we operate, even as a government. If somebody says there is somebody stole money, you don't just sit down. The police will expect that you will go to the police and make a formal report in order for the police to now investigate, even in government itself. So this is what we are saying. There must be some form of a written document that lays a complaint to warrant the authority to go into it and look at it. But the authority will also be careful not to intervene in areas where, for instance, the international body says don't get into this party because we are the ones that give them the money and we don't want you to interfere. Can they do it? Yes, they can. But there is consequence to that action. And that's what I said earlier. If the government and the people of a particular country are ready to face the consequence, then they can go into it. But FIFA would not change its stance in terms of government interference. And government interference is anytime a government authority tries to get deep into FIFA funding based on allegation of corruption or whatever, or IOC funding based on allegation. It will not change. Unless maybe later on it can change, but actually the concern right now, it will. So anytime government or a body of government puts its hand into an association, you should expect those kind of things.
But there are times when this thing of non-interference into football or sports or whatever by FIFA, it's a bit it's a bit of a because we have had instances here when government interfered and Aliu Kejame's time, and they found a way to deal with it. I mean, they sent a delegation to FIFA and explained their rationale for doing so. And so it's not entirely black and white. I mean,
no. There is that possibility.
Hands off completely.
Of course. Yes, the hands off completely is the manner in which I explained it. Well, not hands off completely, but what I mean is if there are reasons to do that, you can. Now, if you want, for instance, you cannot go to FIFA to say we want to investigate. You can go to FIFA, for instance, in an extreme case where the government has got to a level where they believe that a particular executive of an association has to be dissolved. For instance, if you talk about football or the IOC. Now, yes, during the previous government, they have dissolved the federation severally, and FIFA suspended the country, only for the government to come and backtrack and then allow the federation to go. They have suspended GNOC, sent PIU officers to close down the offices of the GNOC. Even under this government in 2017 or 18, I think it happened. But then after 2 weeks, you have to let them go because the IOC is telling you that we will suspend you. However, there was a period when they did it the right way, which is take a whole delegation, go to Zurich and present whatever they had at the time, and based on arrangements, they were allowed to do it. And if I recall, I think it was even announced there in Swiss that the government have agreed with FIFA to dissolve the federation and all of that. But yes, that is possible. But that must be done through a normal route of processes that you must follow and get there and do that. But the thing that you need to be able to go there is the documentation, the evidence of the corruption or the evidence of mismanagement or whatever. That's what you need. And this is where I said that's where the petition needs to come from the member association or from a body that has seen evidence of it to provide it to us. And then you can be able to take actions like that. If it doesn't happen, because what we have now is people complaining, but nothing is written. In the past, you can do that. Or the federation can, or the ministry, do go through other proxies to get whatever they want, and then they go and present that. Maybe that happens.
Yeah. But of course, also, I mean, you as the minister also is the duty bearer primarily for all developments of sports, everything, youth development, sports development, and you can make anything your business.
No, of course. Well, yes, we do make certain things our business. What we try to avoid or don't even try to get into it is the accusations that people try to peddle around.
Sort of ones that are political in nature.
Yeah, because sometimes, yes.
Because
sometimes,
if there is a legitimate concern, I mean, the minister should be concerned too.
Well, maybe.
I mean, even if it's written on the newspaper and there's a legitimate concern, a public opinion is being expressed and somebody has made a legitimate argument, I mean, you reading through it would know that maybe...
No, we do. I mean, sometimes, I don't know whether because we don't communicate these things to the public, but we do. There has been many instances where we have asked the National Sport Council to write to an association to seek clarity on certain things and to ask for documentary evidence of what the claim is. And they provide it to us because they know that there is an authority, which is the ministry, responsible for all sport issues, including the council. And when associations write to us, we ask GFF, we ask the Sport Council to write. And GFF, for example, GFF, they will take time to explain. We've had the same instances with the Gambia Basketball Association. We had similar things in the past with GNOC. All of these things are there. But when they write to us, and then we look into it, and the Sport Council has a technical committee, and the technical committee, which is expert, would normally advise that from what we have seen, this and this is what has happened. When I was appointed newly, I think around 2021, we had something similar with the NOC. And then we wrote, they provided answers, and the technical committee at the time, I mean, recommended for a dissolution of the GNOC. For that, you know, the ministry said, no, we don't want to do that because we thought it was not in the best interest of our athletes. But then we engaged the NOC to resolve some of these issues. And GFF, recent acts last year, you know, we've written to them, I think, twice to provide clarity on certain things that people make, claims that people make, including when the Gala put up a petition. We asked them, and they provided all the answers, and we were convinced with what they provide.
But in a situation where I'm coming to wrap up on this potential, on this bill, it's not an act yet.
Not yet.
It's not even passed before the national.
Yeah, that's why what we intend. That's why I keep saying what we intend to do or what we intend to have.
But it's already finalized, isn't it? I mean,
yes, from cabinet level, yes. Now the last process is the assembly.
Yeah, so I mean, because I'm also sifting through it, I spent last night trying to read and understand what the rationales are. But I mean, if you look at, for example, the part on dissolution, where it can be required, it has the powers, of course, to dissolve the associations. And you know, for example, I'll take GFF as an example. I mean, even where the law requires them to dissolve, for example, if they fail to go to a General Assembly or AGM, wouldn't that be considered interference?
It will.
Exactly. And so there's kind of a...
Yeah, no, it will. That's why I said we are not avoiding the possibility of the registration of an association, because I guess that's how it is written, the registration. And yes, if you try to do that, there are consequences. That's why I said, if at the political time, really, we are not ruling out the possibility of the registering or dissolving an executive. If that is what it will take to make to bring sanity to that particular sport, and the opinion is that it is necessary, we would be ready to do that, and then face the consequence if there is any. Maybe if you don't follow but if you follow the procedure, there is, because it's not that it is impossible to dissolve an association. It's possible. It's just have a particular way that you have to be able to do it, to get it right, and then there'll be no consequence. You can put him an interim committee to normalize, or they call it normalization committees, and get things done. So that's why the provision is still there, or not, it's there to allow for that situation when it arises. There is also a lesser sanction in that bill, which says that the ministry or the government will not recognize the association. In that instance, now we would say that the association would not be able to represent Gambia using the Gambia's name at any international event, and we have a right to do that. People can come and form their associations, but it is up to us now to be able to recognize the association. For example, if government says we are not participating in African Volleyball Championship, the volleyball committee, volleyball association will not go and register the Gambia there because they cannot use our name, or we will not even provide the funding. It's the same way government says, okay, GFF, we are not participating in AFCON qualifications of 2027. They will not participate in AFCON qualifications. So these kind of things can happen. And that would be maybe a lesser, and that nobody will sanction you for that. It's the country that says our national team is not going to participate, we will not participate. And we've seen those things happen, and that's also possible. And that makes probably redundant the association itself, because you're not participating, or you're not doing anything. And if you don't participate in international competition, your affiliation to that international association also will be kind of severed somehow. So, and then naturally you will have to leave. Because
and of course, it's also in the interest of FIFA for countries to be interested in football.
Yeah. In fact, yes, there are, with football, there are a lot more, because the more you participate, sometimes also they receive more support. If you participate less, you receive less support. So those are the things. So if you deny them the opportunity to participate in an activity, I mean, they cannot survive, because their funding will be less, and when funding is less, the activities cannot take place.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe we could wrap up on this subject. But the issue of the sports development, if you look at GFF, you look at the ministry, the amount of money that's been spent by the two entities. I mean, even though they are coming from two different sources. Would the authority have the capacity to also review both the ministries also because the GFF, GNOC and others will be reporting to the ministry. They would be reporting to the authority. Yeah. But would the ministry also be reporting to the authority?
Oh, no. The authority is an institution of the ministry.
Yeah, but the ministry also has to have somebody watch over it.
No, we do. It's the National Assembly.
Yeah, I know, but probably, I mean, you do not think it should have been a little bit broad, so that...
No, I mean, the higher authority...
It entails on all sports, all investments into sports.
No, that is not the format, and that will even be almost impossible, because the authority is an institution of the ministry and an institution of government. There are already institutions, accountability institutions within government. The National Audit Office, the National Assembly. These are the two institutions that do those kind of oversight. Yeah, the Select Committee on Sport, they do those oversights. So if there is anything, for instance, just like we would want to hold the association accountable through the authority, others, we are also held accountable through the National Audit Office, the National Assembly, through directly or through the even not just the sports Youth and Sports Committee, but even the National Assembly Committee on Government Projects. Like recently, we were there, I think a month ago, we were summoned to the National Assembly by the joint committee, a joint committee of Youth and Sports and committee on monitoring of government projects. And we went, had conversations, provided all the information they needed, and that is an oversight responsibility. So yeah, so for the authority, it will be for the others who don't have a mandate to us. I mean, who government cannot, well, who don't report to government directly. Those are the ones that will report to the authority.
Another significant thing would be the establishment of a sports tribunal.
Yes, we are doing that. So with three platforms or three important groups. One is the sports tribunal. The other one is the Sports Development Fund,
Yeah.
which we don't have currently, and I think it has hampered our sports development. And then the anti-doping platform.
Yeah.
So these three are created as groups or platforms within the bill.
Authority.
But yeah, for the sports tribunal, it's again part of this. There are certain things that the authority cannot go into by virtue of its role. And then for independence sake, you would want now a magistrate or a judge to sit over those matters, and they will have powers of a normal court, and then to be able to make rulings that are enforceable. And that will also help all the associations, for instance. Okay, not everything is about accountability. There are some that are issues of unfair treatment, for instance, of an association. Maybe a club, not an association. A club is suspended, and the club feels that the suspension was not justified. They don't have to come to authority. They can only report to the authority, but the authority will now take the court case to the tribunal. And that's in line with international standard, because there is an international sports court at the international level, which hears cases of sport matters. And if a particular regulatory body takes a decision that the association or the club is not happy with, they can go to CAS. And that CAS is the International Sports Tribunal. So we're trying to establish a local one here where all these associations can go to, or even if the authority takes a decision.
Because at this point, I think I'm following a particular situation relating to female football.
Yeah.
And in this particular situation, in a case where GFF, for example, makes a decision, an appeal is made to GFF.
Yes.
And that's a...
No, that's wrong.
Yeah, that's a bit of a tricky situation.
Yeah. I mean, GFF has its own internal processes.
But that's the current arrangement. An appeal is made to GFF.
Yeah. So if GFF appeal, which is in line, if GFF's appeal is a decision is taken by the committee, and the club is still not happy, then they come to the sports tribunal. That's the idea. So for instance, let's take the example of URR. In recent times, there were 3 clubs, I think, that were suspended by the regional FA in URR. And the clubs thought that the suspension or the dissolution, I think they were taken out of the regional football 3rd division league. And they thought it was wrong. But then when they wrote to GFF stood with the position of the regional FA. And then they ended up going to the courts. So that is what we're trying to avoid. So when you write to GFF and GFF takes a decision that, for instance, the club is not happy with, instead of going to the normal courts, they would come to the sports tribunal. That's the idea. And then also, like I gave an example earlier, a particular association has 2 executives, and then the authority makes a decision that this is the recognized body, and the other group still feel that it was wrong. Then they can take the matter to the sports tribunal for the sports tribunal to make a decision.
Even the authority also will be subjected to the issue.
Yeah, because the authority will be just like a government institution, and government institutions can make decisions that someone else is not happy with.
And associations themselves can challenge also the authority.
Yeah, the authority in terms of decisions that they make. Yeah, just like how they can challenge the authority of an internal redress system of a federation or of an association, they can do the same thing with the association.
So when is this particular bill going to be, maybe let's say, passed?
No, we look forward to, the process of the assembly sometimes can take time, but our belief or our wish is that it is passed this year. And already, like I said, the processes of all these channels that it has to go through all the way to cabinet is completed. Cabinet has approved it. And once the amendments from cabinet are incorporated, then it will go to national assembly. So we have already submitted a letter to the assembly, like they will normally ask that if you have particular bills or motions that you want to submit, that you should list it. So we've already listed it at the National Assembly, the youth bill and the sport bill, and then the motion to validate the agreement between the Gambia and Turkey in terms of sports. So these are the 3 things that we submitted to the assembly as a listing for things that we want to bring to them in their city.
Before we go to the issue of sports facilities, there is this subject matter that a lot of people have been debating about for a very long time. That the issue of our sports, there are a lot of people who argue that we have clubs at the 1st division level and clubs at different levels, but yet we zonals is, for example, regional teams or village teams, like let's say zonals when we are played, is actually much more popular than the first division or the league games. I mean, and that they sort of argue that our teams, government should sort of work with teams to sort of rationalize their existence in line with community-based football to spur community excitement. I mean, is this something along the line of your thoughts yourself, or this is far-fetched?
No, it's not. I think that's something that should be. I mean, can
because
be
you
done.
pass the stadium, for example, they tell you first division league
Play, and it's
nobody's
empty.
there. Well, you said zonals Burfoot is playing Sukuta. The stadium is packed. Like it's like
No, I think that is the best thing that could happen. Now, unfortunately, we've not had that pathway. Now, and it's not really a ministry thing. The ministry has a role, but the primary duty.
But policy is in the ministry's hands.
Yes, but this is not just a policy. This is more of an operational issue.
Yeah.
Because our policy is the one that because last year we had a new policy, the national sport policy.
Yeah.
And the national sport policy emphasizes on community participation in sports. And then there is a program, a strategic plan attached to it. In the strategic plan also, we've highlighted some of these things that you mentioned. How can, for instance, divisional teams be taken to the community level and then allow these teams to come? But our role is to have the policy. The one that should now make that functional is the different associations. It's the Gambia Football Federation, the Gambia Volleyball Association, Basketball Association, Athletics. Those are the ones that need to be responsible for that. And because they are the ones that handle the leagues, for instance, not us. Our role in the leagues is very, very minimal, if any. So these leagues, maybe to deviate a bit. So for instance, if you take the example of the GFF, quite a number of the funding that come from FIFA is to fund the league. And then sometimes they have challenges because of the other expense that they have to do. Now, why that is because the league is not a national property of the ministry. It's an issue of GFF. Now, however, some countries have gotten far. For instance, when you have the Sports Development Fund, they can create a particular amount of funding to give it to the leagues. Now, in that, you can put conditions to say, for us to be able to fund the league, you must be able to do this and that. And that they will have to abide by it because they want the funding and they will now be subject to do that. But if you're not contributing towards their league and you want to condition them as to how they do the league, then there's a problem.
But alternatively, you can also build your own community teams and do a hostile takeover.
No, so if you look at it now, I mean, not necessarily...
because government has a mandate to invest in sports development. And there are communities that are invested in sports also. Government can help those communities to build their own teams and sort of fight their way to the first division.
No, so we started that. If you look last year, we've been supporting the zones. Last year, we gave some monies to zones, Serekunda East, Serekunda West, Bikama, and then some of the other communities. The idea is to be able to help those zones to develop their infrastructure. You know, Bakau, for instance, just submitted a request for a second pavilion because what we're trying to do is to ensure that these infrastructures are there and then they can be able to just bring up the football or any kind of game as the one we wish. Also, our investment in some of these infrastructures in the rural areas is to be able to bring all those communities up because sports can never be able to thrive if the infrastructure is not there. So the basic thing, and unfortunately we're doing that now, is to support community sporting infrastructure in order to have the base. And then you can be able to build teams out of those regional infrastructures that we are now trying to put up. Now, for the league, let's say example, last night we were at Serekunda West for this President Barrow Ramadan night tournament. And the football field, the Serekunda West was packed, was full. And this was the exact conversation I was having with some of the people there, that for instance, if you bring the league to this level and ensure that it starts from here and then they go up, those teams would because there were only two teams and the stadium was packed. So it means these are the fans of these teams. If this same team goes to a third division or goes to a second division, this crowd will follow them there. And that will mean that the interest will be there. But that is something, like I said, that is not for us to do. Ours is to propose the mechanism, but the implementation of it has to be done by the associations that are mandated to do that.
Because if you look at it, for example, you're talking about the issue of money. Sports is self-funded. So where there is money, advertisers would come. Where there is people, advertisers would come. Where there are no people,
not Gambia though.
Yeah, but if the people are showing so much interest in sports, such that it's huge, okay, and when you are talking about sport, team playing, stadiums are filled up.
Yeah.
Advertisers are very likely to come and align themselves with those teams.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So we've seen that happen in the recent past with these zone signing agreements with the GSM companies, with some of these fintechs and other stuff. And yes, it's because maybe there's a growth in it. But if you go deep into how much they're providing, it's as good as nothing.
But you can argue, they can argue for better, but what is clear is that you can't attract advertiser interest in a football that in itself is not
it's not popular.
It's not very popular.
No, yes, I agree with that. That's why I said, okay, so you have more companies or companies getting more interest in the zones than even in the leagues because of the crowd that comes in. And I don't want to name those things, but they are there. The GSMs and others. You go to Serekunda East, West, Bakau now, and then Manja, you will find them there. You go to Brikama, they are there. But then you don't find them at the national level. And that's because, yes, it's because of the crowd. So that's why earlier on, I agree to your suggestion that when these teams at this local level grow, then they carry the crowd along to the second division and the third division. Because some of the challenges with these clubs are that they are mostly seen to be properties of individuals and not necessarily owned by the community.
But they are owned by individuals. I mean,
yes, yeah, that's correct. No, that's what I mean. Yeah, so that's how the people see it also, that the Alili Jamborla, and they don't want to get into it. But in the past, we used to have them. This is, Bara,
from Nyomi.
From Nyomi. When they're playing, the ferry is usually full. People coming to watch because it's their team. They come from the Bara SL area. And you used to have the same thing with Gunjur. When they were playing, you would see a lot of crowd. Fortune also has a similar thing with Farato because they see it. Brikama United is a Brikama United team. So when they play, people come. So that is the model. And really, there has been those efforts to create these community teams. Today you have BK West, you have Kiang something, I think Kiang West. Mm-hmm. The problems with the challenging part about these community teams and why they are not able to progress to the first and second division is because of the funding. They can do well at the divisional level, and then maybe they can even go to second division or possibly first division. But when they get to second division, funding becomes very challenging. When they get to the first division, it becomes challenging. So the individuals who love the sports and follow the teams only follow the team to support. But when it comes to contributions, they don't. So now you realize that these communities, these clubs will die a natural death because they're not able to sustain the expenses of financing a first division and second division team. Because if you're playing, you are from Serekunda, and you're supposed to play in summer. You have to hire a bus, you have to go in the morning, you have to provide feeding, you have to pay some little allowances to the clubs. You will even pay a monthly allowance to the club, to the players. They don't have that kind of money because that team itself is not being financed. And communities own them, play ownership, but they don't put money there. So these are the challenging parts. That's why it's difficult. And then you will see all of a sudden, somebody would go and buy that team and change the name. And then because he has the money.
Yeah.
Example, we've seen N Medical FC. It's a team from Bansang. It's mostly those people that were there that own it. But it's sold now because sustenance becomes a problem. Welingara has a team that was being sustained by the National Assembly member for the area. But at one time he got tired because he realized he's spending a lot of money and he cannot sustain it. He sold the team. But these are community teams. We have a similar one in Canifin. They're struggling to sustain it. It's already in the second division, but they struggle to sustain. So the problem is community teams are good, but their sustainability is a problem.
But sustainability, I don't know whether it's strictly about sustainability, because even if you look at also the issue of administration. So it's like, for example, if you are giving people seed money to go and start a business, you have to first train them to do business, on how to manage a business, or what kind of business they are going to go into and manage. Okay, so a lot of these people who are also coming to manage those football teams are not necessarily people who are trained to manage sports teams and all that stuff. So probably that's why our government should come in and sort of find a way to train and also help them secure some funding.
Well, we can try to provide training. Securing funding is challenging because even with us, even with us, we struggle to get funding.
But you cannot make a case to National Assembly considering the level of opportunity sport presents in terms of employment creation, in terms of recreation, in many.
We have done that. I mean, I personally, I cannot imagine how many times I've been to the National Assembly at plenary, at committee level to explain to them to understand the magnitude of sports. The same thing I have done in cabinet all along since I was minister. In fact, sometimes I would take special papers just to focus on that, to show figures of players that left the country after our AFCON qualification, the under 17, under 20. We don't have the data in terms of how much they bring in or how much employment they're creating, because we don't have those kind of research. But evidence is there to show that sports is an industry, just like any other industry. And I've talked about this multiple times. In my statements, I will deliberately mention it, that sports is no longer a recreation, it is an industry. And just like any other industry, if you invest in it, you will reap the benefit. But the unfortunate part is we can do as much as talking, but we don't allocate to ourselves.
But you do not think also, I mean, you guys also hold some kind of responsibility in that the sports hasn't, football, if you look at it, for example, hasn't sort of generated the kind of enthusiasm, I mean, at the first division level to attract advertiser interest? Or do you think that advertisers are just not interested? But we know probably they are, because they are interested in zoners.
Yeah, no, some of them are interested in donor, but if you look at it, these are, like I said, mostly two sectors. Is the fintech industry
and the GSM.
And the GSM. These are the only two sectors that are putting in investing. And there is a reason for that. Because, for instance, GSMs, the majority of the users of all these apps and that use the internet is the young people. Yeah. So there's a competition between these GSMs to attract young people to them. The fintech also is the same. The older generation cannot use it. It's the younger ones that use it. Maybe now with the other one, the new one, everybody, it's not new, but majority of the people use that. So that is the interest that they have. And there's a competition among them as to, for instance, who does what. But again, there's another business interest to them. For instance, if Serekunda, let's take Serekunda West, a particular fintech industry will come and say, I want to sponsor you. But they're not sponsoring you as such. They also want you to give them the tickets so that they sell the tickets for you, which also is an income generating. So it's also something that they're taking and then putting back in. So, and I'm not there to say don't do this, don't do that, but I know some of these deals that they have, in my opinion, are not fair to some of these zones. Because if you give somebody example at the end of the year 300,000, but then you said, give me your tickets, I'll be the one selling your tickets. And then you are generating a lot of activities in your app. I mean, there are a lot more issues that are there. So sometimes it's not necessarily...
You're making a lot more money.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and it's not necessarily interest to support. Because somebody told me that...
It's business.
Yeah, last year, they even have to force one of the GSMs, I mean, one of the fintech to increase the amount because they were giving them 250,000 for the entire year. And then they increased it to 300,000. So these are things that are not desirable, but these are, like I said, committees that are there and they have their own managements. You can only talk to them and advise them. But when they do these deals, they don't even let you know, and they're not supposed to really let us know because they are categorized as regional committees that are directly under the councils, and maybe councils can have those kind of legal committees to help them when they're drafting these contracts before they go into it. But there are a lot more issues. But I agree with you entirely that interest in sports is what generates investment. That is true, an advertisement. And how do we make, for instance, the league more attractive to investors is to be able to bring these community teams to the regional level, to the divisional level, and then maybe the challenges. Now, all these donors also, or the supporters, not donors, sponsors, focus on the activity, not on the team.
Yeah.
Today, Unique Global, for instance, is Unique Solution and Global Properties. They decided to work together to buy Medical FC. but they are not partners with the owners, the original owners of Medical FC. They bought it from them and now they own it. So in normal sponsorship, you would go into a community and say, you own this team, we want to partner with you, we can take 40% and then you keep your 60%, or we take 60%, you keep your 40%. The team still becomes a community team. But if you buy it from them, then you're taking it away from them and the interest will no longer be there. Even if they go to play at the first division, that crowd will not follow them because they don't hear the name Medical FC, they hear another name and they don't subscribe to that name. So that is the challenging part. So taking a community team, you keep the name. I told you there is one, I think BK West or something, which is from Kiang West team. They sold it. But now it's no longer Kiang West, it's another name. And the people of Kiang West will not see them, that is their thing. So these are the challenging part. And if you go, for instance, in the other most developed countries, the team remain where they are. Investors come and invest and take percentage.
Like Real Madrid is Real Madrid.
Yeah, it is, and the same thing with all these others that are, Manchester United, all of them. Yeah. And the name is there, but the investors are different people.
Yeah.
So, but these are things that it's not us who make those kind of decisions, it's the owners, and it's like seem more like a private business. But if they start selling the players, then they make money. So the end result is no longer about the interest itself, it's about the investment opportunity that is seen to be able to sell 2-3 players and make a lot of money.
Yeah, but they are making a lot of money. But then the point is also, if you look at it, I mean, the lack of money generated by these teams is also affecting even how much money they are able to invest in football. So, for example, players barely get paid.
Yeah.
So how do you sustain a player, get him to, I mean, it's almost like volunteering.
2,000 a month or 1,000 a month.
Yeah, volunteering work.
Yeah. And really, these young people, I believe they are into it because of the love and the prospects.
Yeah.
But not necessarily what they get, because they're not getting anything.
They're not getting anything.
But if you're a good player, you love to play. But then you're also saying, let me hold on to it because maybe I will be scouted and then go out and then, then they can take themselves out.
And the people you are looking up to for reform or for potential reform are team owners. I mean, I look briefly into sports and the amount of conflict of interest that you see. So, for example, you have, the kind of people you are looking forward to sort of have a reform are team owners. They are also sports administrators, so in a lot of cases. And so if the people who are into associations, into sports administration, own also clubs or part owners of clubs. Some are journalists, some are, So how do you, that area, it's a landmine, it's difficult to manage. I mean, because you're asking for actions that are going to hurt the very people who are supposed to make the decisions.
That is true. I mean, that's a huge conflict. I mean, I don't know whether I would be right to call it conflict, but there is an issue with that. And unfortunately, in the other places that the little I know about, a journalist or a businessman or somebody can have a share in a club, but he does not get involved in the administration, direct involvement in the administration of the club. They stay out and allow administrators to do that. Now, the thing about our country is what you said earlier about the lack of trained personnel to manage associations of clubs. So I can be a club owner at the same time administer the club, and then be a journalist at the same time, or be a businessman of some sort when I have maybe a little knowledge on sport administration. But that also is because it's the general view of what sport is in the Gambia. Maybe in 10 years ago, if you tell somebody that I want to study sport administration, the person will think you are not very ambitious.
Yeah, because there's no money.
Because no, there is.
I mean, they think there is no money.
Yeah. It's because this is the sector. Today, in the country, who wants to go and allow your kid to go and study music, for instance? Because we see it as something that is not relevant, but maybe it can generate a lot of money. Even these cameras, if you want to go and study videography in the past, people will think that's not a good job, but it's bringing a lot of money. So this is the same thing with sports. It's the perception that sports is about recreation, tulungolem and ififola and all that. And that's it. That's why nobody ever cared to do that. And today, most of the people that are administering sports, be it coaches or be it administrators, it was because they were involved in it and they grow with it. but not that they went to school to learn it or anything. And it becomes very challenging. Is there a conflict? Yes, I believe so, because even if you're a writer and you cannot write against your own club, you cannot write against your own people because all of you are in the same.
Yeah, I've had journalists reach out to me to say want to look into, say for example GFF, for example's sake, and it turns out they are in a team opposite GFF.
Oh, that's a lot.
So I said, but if you are contesting against GFF, I mean, how do you investigate GFF?
It's the same. Do we have I mean, and that's the thing. I'm not naming people, but there are quite a number of these journalists that are associated with one camp or the other, and they want to use the media or even use the ministry to fight their case. And unfortunately, they have carried some people along. And with me, what I try to do is to not be influenced by those kind of things. The same way they reach out to you, they come to my office, they reach out to me, telephone calls, send me messages. In fact, they will even take examples of other countries and send me that same information and say, this is what this country did. I'll just acknowledge it and move on, because now you're telling me that you as a journalist, because you support a particular camp, you want to go and dig into certain things and say ministers should do this. And unfortunately, they carry some people along. I've seen people constantly tag me on issues. The recent one in Nyakoi, people tag me. People even call me names.
That's the stadium that's built.
Yeah, the one that at URR. In fact, some of our own people were carried along, because I saw in one of our NPP page, somebody wrote a story and said the ministry is a toothless bulldog, and that's our own NPP people. But because they don't support the current executive, they support another group, they want me to get involved to the level of bringing that political angle into a page that is officially an NPP page, but you decide to write that. Because they're no longer looking at the politics, the party belonging, they're looking at the political angle to say the minister should do this because you want the GFF to be dissolved, or you want the ministry.
But that particular thing, it's particularly very, I even saw Mahdi post about it, it's particularly very controversial.
Yeah, I saw Mahdi's post.
Yes, you saw Mahdi's post.
No, I saw it, but while I agree with some of the points he raised, I disagree with some, because you see, when you say the ministry should investigate the GFF and GFF cannot claim independence, it's as good as saying the Ministry of Lands should investigate NGOs because they are receiving money on behalf of the Gambia. And that is the thing that Mahdi, as an NGO activist, who believe that NGOs should government should not interfere in operation of NGOs, it's the same. Because NGOs are equally receiving money on behalf of Gambians from international donors. But
maybe the contexts are different. Maybe.
How?
So, for example, if you are an NGO and you are receiving money to implement a particular project, it's different from when you are saying we are receiving money on behalf of Gambia as a state.
It's the same. Because the government, the GFF does not receive money just by receiving money. They have to develop projects and then send to CAF or GFF, FIFA, that are approved, and they send them the money for the implementation of a particular project, infrastructure project, or to fund the National League, or to fund the operations of their office.
GFF is very national by its infrastructure. So, for example, if you go and say Gambia Edward Francis Small Center for Rice, they will say no. You cannot put Gambia in the name of any institution. But GFF, they have Gambia Football Federation. And they are legally
a lot of them that have Gambia, like Gambia Football Federation, GNOC. Not only that, there are institutions that call themselves Gambia. I've seen what will I use?
If you go to MOJ to register a company, you cannot put Gambia there.
No, but that's new.
Well, that's just started now. Well, then nowadays you cannot.
Yeah, no, I've seen people say that they don't allow you to use Gambia in something. I don't know what practice that is, but I've seen that there are associations that they were called Gambia something.
Well, you don't think GFF and GNOC are quite very Gambian one?
They are registered the same way like NGOs. They are a limited liability company, registered at the AG Chambers as a company. And that's where it stops.
Yeah, but there is a reason why you would be so interested and invested, and the government has a history of even dissolving GFF and GNOC and even interfering, like special forces style.
No, because it's
Yeah.
it's foot now. Have you ever had the government dissolve the
NGOs?
The basketball association or the volleyball association?
No,
They never did. They are also an association just like the GFF.
Yeah.
But you've never had, or at least here, say, oh, government, people don't even talk about basketball association, volleyball association.
They're not as popular as the others.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because sports, football is a very popular game. So there's a lot of attention on the football. And that is why it generates so much debate and so much interest. But the Gambia Football Federation is the same as the Gambia Basketball Association, same as Gambia Volleyball Association, Gambia Athletics Association. They are all the same.
But just a final point on this. Do you not think that also when people say, because people say something, doesn't necessarily mean that, I mean, I raise this issue of conflict because as a journalist, I find it complicated to deal with because they can just dismiss your findings on the basis of partisanship. So it's even not in your own interest. But what I'm trying to say is that the fact that, for example, an NPP person says something about UDP doesn't necessarily mean that thing is not true. I mean, because the person is not UDP, is NPP. So do you not think, therefore, that even when allegations like that reaches your desk, probably you should just take interest for the sake of it and try to establish whether or not they are true, and not necessarily dismiss it on the basis that well, this person is conflicted. I mean, I know this is a big issue, but...
Yeah, no, but that's what I said. I mean, if you are not a stakeholder to the Gambia Football Federation and you go on Facebook and post and say the ministry is investigate this, it will be very difficult for us to investigate, because what you are writing is just an open letter or an open paragraph, an open post there to say there is corruption. What we need is that person to write a formal petition or a formal letter and attach the evidence of the corruption or something and bring it to us, or give us probable reasons to believe that there was, even if you don't have the evidence, but send us something that you said, this and this and this is what I saw, and I want the Sport Council to look into it, or the ministry to look into it. Then we will do. Even if we don't do directly as a ministry, we can forward the matter to the police, who is mandated to investigate fraud, to say there is something that has come and we want you to look into that.
But there is also another way government itself, if it's interested, can have increased influence in sport administration by funding regional sports, by funding the very people who own the GFF. Well, if you put your money where your mouth is,
you can have a voice in it.
You can have a voice in it.
And I agree with that, but I need to indicate that. I said some of the challenges, like for instance, if you have like you done sports with a very limited budget as compared to what we need to do, you will have to focus on what is considered the priorities. And there might be good initiative, but even if you, for instance, struggle to build a particular infrastructure somewhere, or you struggle to fund the national team's participation in international events, you will not worry much about the regions, because that would be now expanding your scope to a level that you cannot even be able to sustain. Even clubs, our wish would have been to be able to subvent some of these clubs that are maybe in the first division, to be able to help them in their operations. But you don't have that kind of budget to be able to do that. So these are some of the challenges that, so we tend to avoid. Sometimes we do, like for instance, I know in the last 3 years, we have supported the teams that qualify to go to the Africa Club Championship, whether it's a female team or it's a male team. Real de Banjul and on others, Beroleng and others, we've supported. But that was not the practice before. So slowly we are expanding our reach to more associations and then more clubs. Even traditionally, ministries would not fund clubs, but we are doing that now. We support some of these that go for international participation, for instance, the Norway Cup. That was not happening before, but now we're trying to do those things because we are expanding our reach to be able to encourage the club's existence and the participation of some of these teams in both local and international events. But like I said, primarily it's about the funding. And truthfully, because the private sector is not doing much in the sports, That is what put so much pressure on government. But if there was a reasonable amount of support from the private sector, then some of these things would be taken off from government list and we'll focus on the other areas.